Hi, I'm Bob Roth, Managing Partner and Co-founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. Since 1994, we've been helping older adults in the Phoenix community age gracefully and safely in the place they call home. Since 2014, I've been bringing you Health Futures, Taking Stock in You, a show dedicated to helping you live a longer, healthier, and happier life. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Health Futures. And today we're going to have a conversation about healthcare. Primarily, we're going to talk about orthopedics. And I have in the studio with me a longtime friend and his beautiful wife. Friends for 30 years, maybe 31 years, dear friends. And David, Dr. David Bailie is coming on the show. And this is his number 9th appearance. You were here in 2014 for the very first time.
That doesn't seem that long ago.
Dr. David Bailie, welcome to Health Futures.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on again.
And Amy Bailie, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you for having us.
It's great to have you here. So, David, we've talked about a lot of different things. And, this format is a little bit different from what we used to do. And we used to do radio and converted that into podcasting. This is podcasting. So I want you to just be you and for us to have a conversation. But for our listeners and our viewers who are just meeting you for the very first time, I know it could be very extensive. I want you to give me the abbreviated version of your background, where you're from, how the two of you guys met, and really your career in healthcare, primarily in orthopedics. And really, how'd you choose this as a career?
A lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff.
Well, first we met in Indianapolis, went to high school together, but didn't date, but rekindled our friendship. Senior year in college, I went to Michigan. She went to Indiana.
Indiana?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did they just win the national championship?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, way to go.
Yeah, our whole lifetimes we've been waiting for this.
Yeah, it's always been about basketball, right?
Yes,
The football
yes.
team has never been good.
Yes.
No, they're incredible.
Yeah, they got a great coach.
Oh, amazing. So, yeah, we met again over Thanksgiving senior year. I was home. She was home. And we met and kind of started dating the last half of senior year. So grew up in Indianapolis. I went to Michigan. I went to Indiana for medical school because of her. I was going to go to Michigan, but because I met her and she was a second grade teacher licensed in Indiana, I moved back, went to med school there, and then we moved to Chicago, Northwestern for orthopedic surgery, and then got sick of the cold weather. So we mobilized to Houston at Baylor Sports Medicine for my fellowship. And then I came out here when I was on a road trip with the Houston Rockets. And I was asked to join the Phoenix Suns medical team. So that's what led us to Arizona.
CSMO, right?
Yeah.
I remember
those
good memory.
days.
And I remember you being on the sidelines for the Suns.
Yeah. I did that for 3 years. Coyotes, the Rattlers, the Mercury, and the Suns. That was kind of my on-call.
But you were young. I mean, it was great.
It was be at the game till 1 in the morning.
And when the kids were young.
I took them. Yeah, it was great. Braden met everybody. He would take little pills down to the guests. Visitor locker room. Yeah, like Shaq needed ibuprofen, so I gave him the thing. Braden was 3 or whatever. And I'd say, run it down. There's a big guy sitting in a chair right when you walk in the door. Just give him this little bag.
That is so classic.
Yeah, he doesn't remember any of it.
Well, you mentioned your kids. So you guys have 2 children. And
we do.
I do know both of them. So tell us a little bit about them and what they're doing. We're at the same point in our lives where our kids are all grown up. They're finished school. They're people. And they're actually, they're having careers.
Yeah.
And they're really changing the world.
Yeah.
So would love to know what Braden's doing, what Aubrey's doing. Okay.
You want me to do it? Aubrey is the athletic department attorney for Georgia Tech Athletics.
Nice.
Assistant director, but compliance and legal operations. So she went to school at Colorado. One of our rules was you have to leave the state for school because I think it broadens your horizons. Amy felt the same way. So she went to Colorado, then Wisconsin Law School, and then Georgia Tech. This is her first job. So she's in the athletic department.
She got to see the country, too.
Doing all the
Colorado, Wisconsin.
Contracts. Yeah.
Yes.
And Braden went to Michigan. That was the only place he applied. And
I wonder why.
Yeah, he came home in a Michigan outfit.
And Dad said, you're only applying at one school.
No, we gave him an option.
Decision.
That was his thing. He said, I'm only going there.
Okay.
So his first job was Procter & Gamble, which he still works for them. He's been promoted numerous times. He lived at
He's got to have been there at least 10 years now, right?
2017.
All right. So 9 years.
Yeah.
Going on 9 years. Wow.
So-
These kids grow up so fast.
Yeah,
I
his
know.
first role was at the mothership at the headquarters. So he would see Dave Taylor was the CEO at the time. He networked really well there, and then he
That was
got on
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Yep,
Yeah.
and then he got on the Costco team in Seattle. So he's in charge of Charmin and Bounty paper for North America at Costco.
So big shout out. I want to make sure our listeners know, our dear friends David and Amy raised two really young humans that are changing the world, and so glad to hear
And
that.
good people
And good
more than
people.
anything.
Good
That's
people.
more
That's-
than anything.
yes.
They're very sensitive, empathic,
and they're grounded.
Yeah, very grounded.
And Braden's moving back. So.
Yeah, Braden moved back.
I'm
He's
sure
going to
you
be
guys are
running
really
a
sad
plant here.
about that.
It's going to be nice. Yeah. He bought a house and he's going to be running a plant here
I love
in
it.
Phoenix.
So really talking about orthopedics. So when you went to med school, did you know you were going to go to orthopedics,
So-
or were you thinking other?
Yeah, I decided orthopedics when I was like seventh grade or whatever. I had an orthopedic injury. There was a very well-known orthopedic surgeon in Indianapolis, world-renowned guy who was family friends.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, I really liked being in his office. I thought it was cool. I also like work with my hands. So I was going to be an architect or a carpenter for people. So
I'm not surprised on the carpenter. 'Cause
Yeah.
you're probably banging hammers and screwing
love
things
that
all
stuff.
day long.
Yeah. So it was either that, and I was kind of back and forth, and I chose orthopedics. So I was kind of focused on that all through high school because I knew that you had to do well to get to a good undergrad, to get to a good med school, to get to good residency. Orthopedics was super competitive. Back a generation before, it was the bottom of the barrel for medical school, went into orthopedics, but now it became very competitive in sports medicine, which is what I wanted to do, is even
Right.
harder.
Isn't that incredible how it's grown? I mean, when you first started, it was really a kind of a new niche, and now it's like everybody wants to be in sports medicine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you lived some great lives. The Houston
Oh.
Rockets, and you talk about the Diamondbacks and the Suns
Oh,
and
yeah.
Coyote.
Coyotes.
All the Chicago teams when I was at Northwestern, covered Bears games and Cubs games and took care of the Bulls.
And
Had to make
and
rounds
spring
with Michael
training.
Jordan.
Yes.
spring training. you
Yeah,
probably
spring
were-
training. I did the Brewers out here.
But I know that you're doing something else too. I think I seen pictures of you at the rodeos.
Oh, yeah.
So are you doing that
So,
now too?
yeah, and I was on at KTAR Sports
I love it.
once, and they asked me, you've done so many different leagues, and who are the toughest athletes? And by far and away, pro rodeo. There's no question, hands down, they would crush anybody.
But do they need to have their heads examined? Who would get on a bull that they pull them up by you know what, and they're trying to kick that thing off all day long?
And they want to get back on even with a broken leg.
Yeah.
But have you've seen Free Solo, right?
Yeah.
And the guy just climbed the Taipei 101
Wow.
free with no ropes, right? The tallest building in the world or whatever it is. They're missing part of their brain. They studied
have to
his
be.
brain in Free
Yeah.
Solo, and his amygdala, which controls fear, doesn't register.
Wow.
So the same goes with a lot of these rodeo guys. To do that kind of sport, you cannot have fear. Same with the wingsuit guys and Red Bull athletes, things like that.
Yeah, those wingsuit guys.
Their brain works differently.
That definitely does, and I imagine you've seen some interesting injuries, to say the least, on the bulls.
Oh, yeah. Well, saddle bronc. They lose fingers, they break everything. They're pretty incredible.
So, I met you when you first came here. It was like literally like the first month or first week, and I think Susie and I will say that the thing that impressed us most. You guys were okay, but you had this little boy, Braden, that was using chopsticks at like 2 years
We saw
old.
you Mongolian Grill
Yeah, so it was right
in the
down the street.
pavilions.
Yeah, we saw you there.
We didn't know you. You were sitting at a table. I remember that.
But Susie was like, wow, that little boy can use it. I'm surprised he's not a surgeon along with you because he was using those chopsticks pretty well.
He definitely got his dad's fine motor skills, but he also
Got his good looks too.
He got a lot from his dad. But I think David has been a little bit disenchanted with medicine over the years, and so he's also been
steering
around
him
that.
down that. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I get that. So you had this career at CSMO, and I know you went to TOCA, and then you went off on your own. I may
Yes.
not have that exactly
No,
right.
that's
but
right.
You went off on your own, And while you were at CSMO and at TOCA, I've known you a long time. You've always been a shoulder guy, and I think you've always done knees. And that is when you broke off on your own, you started this company called ASICS. And if I know it's an acronym. Amy, what's the acronym for?
Arizona Institute of Sports, Knees, and Shoulders.
It covers both knees and shoulders. There you go. And I think she had a little bit of help in the name and the design of the artwork and stuff. She's very creative. But seriously, I mean, you have formulated your own practice, and you're practicing on your own, and shoulders and knees are your primary deal.
Correct.
Okay. And shoulders, in my mind, are probably, and I'm a layperson, probably one of the most complex joints there is.
Yeah, it is the most complex joint. It's a balance between mobility, stability, and no other joint really has those issues.
Right, and when people have surgery, it's not something you recover from in weeks.
No.
It is a lot of work, and a lot of the work is done with physical therapy. I mean, you can only do so much.
Yeah.
But when they go to physical, they got to complete the physical therapy. And I can tell you, I haven't had a shoulder surgery, but other surgeries. You did my elbow. You remember that?
Yeah,
the tricep tendon.
Yeah.
You got to work really hard in physical therapy to make it work.
100%. Yeah. It's the technical part is the easy part.
And David handpicks the physical therapist depending on the injury, but he depends on you to do your part at home, because if you're not, then he can only do so much.
Right. I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, you can't just cure it by just cutting in and then letting Mother Nature heal.
Correct.
You got to do the work, and the work is really, really hard. You know, I remember having you on in 2014, and I asked you back then, I said, you know, you are definitely, you know, athletic. You follow athletes, professional athletes, college athletes, high school athletes. And I asked you, you know, what is the one thing that is driving a lot of business your way? And at the time you said CrossFit. You said these kids and these people they're moving their body in ways that we were not designed to move. And you probably saw a plethora of people with injuries that you were fixing through CrossFit.
Yeah, CrossFit was great for shoulder injuries.
I would imagine.
Yeah, you know, it's very ballistic. It serves a purpose, but it puts a lot of stress on shoulder joints. But the old ways of lifting also do. So bench press, things like that are horrendous for the shoulder joint.
We're talking about the shoulder joint, and we know that it's one of the most complex. It is the most complex joint. What should one do to exercise that joint?
I always ask, well, first of all, you got to do maintenance rotator cuff work, even if you have never had a problem. And one thing I say to patients, I tell them about this, and they're like, well, I use my arm in labor or whatever. I use my arms and shoulders all the time. But I use the analogy. It's like you can't go run a marathon without training. So you don't go run a marathon and say you walk all the time or you just run.
Right.
You have to train, and you have to do maintenance work before you go do something extreme. So if you're working out heavy, that's extreme. If you're doing heavy labor work, that's extreme. You need to train for that. Just showing up at work isn't going to do it. So you really do maintenance rotator cuff work. I have videos on my website that I refer a lot of patients to just for post-op rehab they can do on their own after a period of time, but also maintenance.
And I think the videos are really important. Amy, how do people find that video on his website?
Well, they can either look up his name, which is David Bailie, Bailie, MD, or they can just go straight to ASICS, Arizona Institute of Sports, Knees, and Shoulders, AZISKS.com.
Okay, and you have probably a whole video library.
Yeah, if you go to the rehab page, there are 20 some odd videos of just a shoulder rehab program.
Nice, and you know what? Rehab or just strengthening, right?
You can do it
because my shoulders are really weak, David.
So yeah, I would recommend everybody I do them 3 days a week. But the studies have shown that self-directed therapy is just as efficient as supervised, but you need a high level of compliance and motivation to do it on your own. And the American way, of course, is convenience, and just having somebody tell you what to do is easier. But with insurance companies limiting how much therapy you can do and all those things, it's easier to take control yourself and just do them on your own. However, post-surgical, I always recommend some level of supervised initially, but I've had people not do it at all. They're motivated. They can do the whole thing on their own. Others, a few months in therapy, and then they can graduate very quickly. But you need compliance.
Definitely. Need bands. I know that.
Bands, you can get them on Amazon for $7.
And what about the thing that always comes up on my social media? It's spinning that thing around with your wrist, gyro training.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know much about that, but the body blade, which is a big kind of aluminum thing with a grip in the middle, that's really good for stability of the shoulder.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, that's critical for recovery. And in fact, for stability of the shoulder. So it's something people should use anyway.
And I'm hearing you say people should prehab. They should
100%.
Strengthen your shoulders, just like you might do push-ups and anything else.
And as you get older, especially as you know, sarcopenia, loss of muscle mass, it exponentially gets worse after the age of 60. And you could be super fit, but no, it melts away. So you need to elevate your protein intake, your essential amino acids, and you need to lift heavy. Light weights don't do it. You need to stimulate. And even when you do that, most people will only maintain their muscle mass. They won't gain. It's very hard to gain. But if you're not doing heavy lifting 3 days a week, you will dissolve your muscle away. And that's the highest source of morbidity in the older population. That causes falls, imbalance, all those things. And 100%. That's what leads to a hospitalization, which in an older person in the late 70s and 80s is a 50% mortality rate. If you go into the hospital, you have a 50% chance of not coming out many times simply because the sedentary aspects of hospitalization. So you want to avoid that.
The generations before us had some great sayings. And I hearken back to when my mother was in the hospital. I was bringing my grandmother to visit. My grandmother was in her mid-80s at the time. And wise words came from her. And that was, as we pulled up to the hospital, she said, Bobby, the hospital doors going in are large and wide. The hospital doors leaving are small and narrow. Mm. And it's so true. I mean,
100%.
You don't, and we talked about it before the show. You should only be going to the hospital if it is a life-saving emergency.
Absolutely.
Avoid the hospital at all costs.
Yep, absolutely. A lot of people use it for convenience, but you're not going to typically get accurate diagnoses or treatment plans by doing that. So, and you're only going to get sick if you go. And when I did shoulder replacements, I stopped doing them last August as I'm kind of approaching that semi-retirement thing, but I was one of the first in the country to do only outpatient shoulder replacement. Mm-hmm. And people thought it was crazy. The standard stay was 3 days, but I told my patients, hospitals are for sick people. You're not sick. You got a shoulder problem.
Right.
You're not sick. You don't want to be sick. We can do this. And I had one patient be readmitted in my entire career who had an aortic valve problem that was undiagnosed, and the anesthesia brought it to light, so he had to be admitted. Yeah. But other than that, I've never had a readmission acutely after a shoulder replacement. And the standard had always been 3 day stay.
Isn't that crazy?
Same with hips. They do hips and knees outpatient now, but it took until just a couple of years ago till Medicare allowed it, and other insurance companies kind of follow Medicare. But it should have been done for the last 20, 30 years.
And it's amazing. I talked to you about my mom. That was in 1985. They kept heart attack heart attack people that have experienced heart attacks. It's easy for me to say. They kept them in the hospital a long time. Now you have a heart attack, you get a stent in or whatever, you're out within a day or two. And they get you up and they get you moving where they didn't do that before.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. Yes. I want to stay on shoulders real quick.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Pickleball. Is that the new CrossFit?
For the older group, it is. Pickleball injuries are really high, and upper extremities are significant from falls, primarily fractures and things like that. But yeah, the problem with pickleball that I've found, just being observant, is a lot of people who were not very athletic, did not work out on a regular basis, have found something they can do that is exhilarating, energetic, and it's fitness, but they're not ready for it. So they forget to build themselves up by losing weight, working on lower body strength, balance, coordination, things like that. And they just go out and play pickleball, and it's fun until you have an injury. But they're pretty significant, and they're astronomical in the percent increase over the last couple of years. I think there are a couple of published studies on it.
Well,
But
it's interesting because you talked about some of the stuff that they should do to prepare for it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like going to pick up a ball and play on ping pong table. You're physically moving, and I think most of the injuries are probably neck and shoulders because they're backing up, and you know they're typically on sport courts, and you know you're backing up and you just lose your balance and you're going down.
Your feet stick. It's quick bursts. So, you know, a lot of people have some low grade arthritis and their knee sticks or something and they blow out a meniscus again or make the arthritis worse or even stress fractures, Achilles tendon.
I know someone that had an Achilles.
Yep. That's like basketball, you know, that stop and start quick type movements you need to be trained for.
Well, it's just interesting. Susie and I have not gone to pickle. We're still playing tennis. We feel like it's more like a cult. You know, everyone wants to pickle. Come on, you want to pickle? No, I don't want to pickle. I want to play tennis.
Baseline tennis is safe.
That's what we do.
Just don't chase the ball down.
Well, I chase it. I'm like my Labrador.
But you're fit.
Yeah, I'm like a Labrador squirrel, and I go. No, you know, so we've talked about shoulders, and you know, for me, you know, you've been someone I've known for over 30 years, and I know you have a healthcare journey, and I want to share that. But I want to preface that before I share that is that you've always been a student of health. You haven't waited for the American public. You haven't waited for people like Atul Gawande and people like Peter Attia and Mark Hyman. You were advocating for a lot of these things before. You always ate a clean diet. You worked out. I mean, fiercely worked out.
Since I was
Absolutely.
15.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I first met you, we were both in our 30s. And you would tell me that you would go down to the gym. You would jog down, work out at 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it was, get up, take a shower, and you'd be able to do rounds before you got into the office to go visit whatever patients who were in the hospital. I mean, you had this regimen down and you had figured this out. I would love for you to share that experience and what motivated you to do that. And then maybe lean in and talk a little bit about your own healthcare journey and really where you're finding where people can get optimal health. And don't believe everything you read, and certainly don't believe everything you see. Talk to the professionals, and if you're not getting the answers you're looking for, keep seeking the answers. But please,
that's the critical thing. So my health journey started when I was 15, and I'd make my own dinner. I'd make chicken breast, tomato, and cottage cheese every night. My mom would make dinners. I would eat my little chicken breast, tomatoes, and
you like cottage cheese then at 15?
Oh yeah, that was my regimen every night. You know, I've learned a lot over the years because I probably was imbalanced, and things changed over time. Like when we lived in Chicago, there was a bagel place in Skokie. We'd go pick up bagels. They were double size, amazing, and you know we thought that was healthy. But you know
the Wiener Circle, that wasn't healthy.
Yeah,
or the Eros, you know, that you
yeah. But you know, now the food chain, the pyramid is upside down,
right.
which should have been a long time ago. But the only thing I recommend to my patients is, first of all, ChatGPT is wrong many times.
Yeah,
I've called it out, and it admits it when you call it out.
Yeah, I have to.
But you have to do your own homework, and you have to constantly do homework because things change, and you have to stay away. My philosophy is stay away from anybody who's selling a product because there's bias inherent in that. And it doesn't matter if you go to a physician's office and they have a whole store in the front, I would run. That's not the kind of person who has your best interests. They're selling supplements. They may believe in it and have some data, but the fact is nothing substitutes for organic whole foods, period. And on my prostate journey,
well, hold on 1 second. So you ate a clean diet.
Yes.
That's what you're telling me.
Well, what I thought was clean, but it's cleaner now. I've learned a lot since, but yes.
But back in 15, I mean, I talked about how you were working out and you really figured that out.
Every day.
I don't know if you were playing high school ball or college ball, but you were working out. I mean, look great.
It's still my regimen. When we travel, if there has to be a gym, but I've been
every day?
Every day I do something, but I've been known to, if we stay at Airbnb or somewhere like that, I'll find a gym and buy a week membership, even if I only use it for 2 days, or I'll bring my own stuff. If we go travel overseas, everything is centered around where can I work out every day? When I used to run, I could run around, but I don't run anymore because hip and you get older. It breaks down.
I think you told me to stop running.
It breaks down your muscles. Yeah. So, but everything is centered around, do I have access to a place to work out?
And even before you could drive, weren't you riding a bike to your tennis? Didn't you play on the tennis team and you would ride your bike to all of your practices?
And we trained at 5 a.m. So I would do that before I could drive, especially.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I love the commitment, and I aspire.
It's not mentally, it's no longer a commitment. It's like, if I don't do it, my family knows, stay away. Dad didn't work out today.
Right. I mean, it's a matter of feeling good and not feeling good.
Oh, it makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference.
And now I've gotten older. I've learned a lot. Obviously, every day is a learning experience, of course. But in my profession, I take it even more seriously because patients ask me things that I don't deal with. And it's real critical as you get older. You have to do high resistance training and you have to eat better. It's cumulative and you can't turn back sometimes.
Well, eating better is never easy because there's just so many really good things that we've been exposed to.
Well, she's a baker, so.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised she didn't bring cookies. You did the last
cookies
time.
And sourdough.
Thank you. You actually saved me. Because Susie would be like, you must have seen Amy today because you always bring these great cookies. And
well, she has some insomnia, so I'll wake up and there's like 20 new baked goods on the counter.
Well, and just think what the olfactory senses. You know?
Oh, you're just insane.
Like, it's so nice, so good.
And the thing is, I can change the baked goods so that they're healthier, but now I'm realizing that the things that I thought were healthier, and I'll say this was for David, now I'll make you something with monk fruit instead of regular sugar, but that's not a good sugar substitute. So sometimes it's better just to eat a little bit of the real product. I'm making him spelt sourdough tomorrow so that it's, or einkorn flour or rye and I do regular sourdough because the more things, and I grow a garden, the more that you can do yourself and the more one ingredient products, I think the healthier you are because you go to a grocery store and you think you're being healthy and you're not. And that's a problem.
David said on my show, one of the 8 prior to this, so this is number 9. And on number 10, we're going to get you a key to this podcast studio and you'll do your own show. But in all seriousness, I remember you telling me about going to the store and foods that say they're organic may not necessarily be organic. And David, you said to me, if you buy a tomato from Whole Foods and in 2 to 3 days it doesn't start rotting, it's not organic. And you compare to our fruits and vegetables to European ones, which don't have the GMOs and all the other, pesticides and other things that they put into them. And you buy fruit and you buy vegetables, they begin to rot, and they should rot.
Well, and they're sitting out in baskets on the street, right? When if for anybody who's been to Europe, you walk by every market. First of all, they're small markets. They don't have big supermarkets. Some in UK now do, but that's because they want to become American. But most of the places around Europe have small markets. The produce was picked that morning or maybe that evening, night before. It sits on the street, and as does their unpasteurized cheese and their eggs.
Yeah, eggs always.
Eggs in the United States, because you wash them, you remove that protective covering.
Yeah.
They also dip them in bleach because of liability issues. Well, that egg is now super toxic for your system.
Yeah.
So it's very hard. There's a couple of places that we found to source true eggs.
Right.
They ship, but they're very expensive.
Get your own chickens.
Right.
I mean,
but how they peck. So in Arizona, it's a problem because chickens aren't meant to peck in the desert.
Right.
So while they do okay, they're meant to peck in grasslands. So the same with grass-fed beef or whatever. Cattle are not indigenous to Arizona.
Right.
We did find a source that is actually genetically the original cattle that came to the United States. And it was by chance, but they now have permission to sell their meat. But that's who I just found out about this not too long ago. Friends of ours who happen to be ranchers, but cattle in Arizona are different than Washington or Oregon or Midwest. But now you got to worry about also the toxic grasslands because of wastewater and things like that. So real, true beef that has not been crossbred, that feeds in natural lands is super healthy. The problem is that's really hard to find.
Right. I love that about you. I mean, you are a student, you study, you source the best and healthiest proteins.
As much as I can.
Yeah, as much as you can. Do you still carry a Geiger counter?
No, no. We have an EMF reader though.
Yeah, but if you remember, the first time I had you on was 2014. I think we talked about it then.
Yeah.
Because that's when the nuclear power plant in Japan, contaminated all that water.
Yeah, all the way the entire Pacific
when the
Ocean.
tsunami hit, yeah.
Yeah. All the bottom dwellers are radioactive.
Crazy. I mean, it was crazy. We could spend a lot of time on this, but I want to make sure we cover the one part that you leaned in on and talking about your own journey, your healthcare journey. And, you epitomize health. You exercise, you eat right, and then
eat well, not right.
Okay. Eat
right.
well.
Right is morphing all the time.
Okay. Eat well. Eat better than most Americans.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I'll give you a little
Yeah.
example. So I always ate 5 to 6 eggs a day, every day.
I'm usually
with
3.
yolks, and my cholesterol and all that stuff's fine because that doesn't affect your cholesterol
Right.
like they've led us to believe. What I didn't know is that it's a big stimulator for prostate cancer.
Ooh.
And same with heavy duty meat products. I ate chicken all the time. I didn't eat much red meat, but I did. But it was always lean filet. I never ate fatty meat.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out is, the blue zones, I've studied the blue zones at length and also had some conversations with a guy at the USC Longevity Center who's been studying plant-based diets for 30 years and has proven that you can reverse your biological age by 3 or 4 years after just a couple years of doing this. So fasting programs, proper diet, which is, if you look at the blue zones, they rarely eat meat.
Oh, yeah.
If they eat animal products, so they raise goats and sheep, but they don't raise cattle. If they have meat, it's expensive to raise those animals and eat them all the time, so they don't. But they use them for unpasteurized dairy products, and that's healthy. But they typically are plant-based diets. Those that live in the near oceans, like Okinawa and Sardinia, they do a lot of heavy-duty
areas.
Seafood, but the right seafood, and they drink wine. A lot of people talk about alcohol being bad, and generally it is in the United States because it's our soil and water supply that affects the grapes. So Sardinian wine is uniquely special, which is why they drink every day and they live to 100 years old. They also walk all the time.
Yeah.
And primarily hills. We've been to Europe, and you go to, if you're on the Italian coast along the Mediterranean, those coastal areas are super hilly, right? Mm-hmm. And you see 70, 80-year-old people with grocery bags slowly walking up the hill 1.5 miles to their apartment. That's their lifestyle,
right.
But they live a long time. And so you have to understand that you can't recreate all that stuff. But there's one blue zone in the United States, Loma Linda, because the Seventh-day Adventists are as close. They're the only blue zone in the United States. The only difference is they don't drink, but that's also why they don't live as long. But American-based wines are a problem. Amy hardly ever drinks at all, and she can't ever even drink American wine. But if we go to Europe, she can drink wine, no problem, no headache, no stomach ache, no nothing, because it's the soil and water. So all those things,
Interesting.
You can't manipulate it all.
Yeah.
But you can learn about it.
No, interesting. So I'm leaning in on the journey. So
Sure.
Thank you. Nick Butner and his brother, I mean, what they created with the Blue Zone is amazing. I love the fact that Scottsdale is one of the Blue Zone cities. Honor Health. I had Todd Laporte on here. He's the first one in and got a whole lot of other people in. It's well-intended.
It's a start.
Information is power. Knowledge is power.
Correct.
And getting that information out. It's no different than your patients. I mean, it's how you respond to it and whether you act on it.
It's
a whole different
encouragement.
story.
If you say you live in Scottsdale and it's going to be a blue zone city, even if that's not true by the standard definition of blue zone, it's going to motivate people to, I want to be able to walk more to work and kind of utilize some of those same principles.
Mm-hmm.
But no city in the United States can recreate blue zone. environment because it's
100%. And I don't think they try to.
But it is Loma Linda's is close because they have community. They're vegetarians. They have all the other things, and they're very strict about it. Whereas most people just tend to, I can cheat this time. It's my birthday or Christmas or whatever. And there's no cheating in Blue Zones. But with that being said, my prostate thing, I don't go to doctors because I know enough and I pay attention.
So what were some of the symptoms you had?
I had zero symptoms. I just checked my PSA.
So your PSA just sort of...
It was normal, but it was high normal.
Right.
So it was 58, and it went from 2.4 to 4 over a 2-year period of time. That's not a huge jump, but it's a jump. So I got a prostate MRI just to check, and there was a small little tiny 3 millimeter shadow in the prostate. So I went out to USC to the urology cancer place there because the reason I went there is the guy who is chairman, he basically invented the Da Vinci robotic surgery when he was chair at Cleveland Clinic. So he's the guy who took the Da Vinci and said, we can use this for prostate. So I knew he was now the chair at Keck USC, and their whole department is urologic cancers. These guys don't do general urology.
Right.
They're only bladder and prostate cancer. That's it. And it's a huge department. And they do all the complications too. So fistula, all the complications from prior surgeries gravitate to there. So I went there and had my biopsy. It was a transperineal. They used to do transrectal, which only in Arizona, that's all they ever did. So in Europe, they were doing transperineal at least 5 years before it came here. USC was way ahead of it, and it lowers the risk of infection, all these things. So I had a biopsy, piece of cake, less than going to a dentist. It was no problem. And some of the cores came back positive, not super aggressive, Gleason 7. And that's classified as 3 plus 4, 4 plus 3. What that means is a pathologist looks under the microscope and they subjectively look at the cells and say, this looks like it's a 3, 4, or 5. And then they say, okay, from this core sample, what percent is more 3, 4, or 5? And then they add them together. So if you're more 3 and then some 4, you're a 3 plus 4. If you're more 4 than 3, you're a 4 plus 3. If you have a 5 in there, that becomes 5 plus whatever, and that's a Gleason 8 or 9. 8 or 9 is high risk. A 10 is rare and devastating.
I was going to say, it could be
most
fatal.
people, 6 is borderline, even you may not even have cancer. Just you got some cells that are morphing, but every male has that. Probably doesn't need to be treated. Now they do active surveillance for that. Mine was a 4 plus 3 and a couple of cores, but they could target the lesion. So they took the MRI plus an ultrasound and they fuse them together to do a 3D biopsy. So they know they're not random biopsies. They can see where the needle goes, so they could target the lesion and then target where they want around the lesion. So you know where every core came from. And in the lesion was, I think, 2 or 3 4 plus 3s. And so they said, you should do something. You're an intermediate risk. You could watch it, but not a good idea. So I, within 2 months, went out and had a radical prostatectomy.
Yeah, you did the whole thing.
And his philosophy was lymph node dissection. Out here, they don't do that routinely. In fact, I know some urologists that I run stuff by when I got back because I want somebody local if there's an emergency or something. And they're like, we were surprised he did a lymph node dissection, but I'm glad he did because if you have a recurrence, and 50% of guys do, you need to know where that came from. I had a positive margin only after the fact. So when they send the samples off for pathology, and surgery was easy, 5-hour surgery. I was up walking the next day. We rented an Airbnb in LA and we walked miles and miles every day.
Wow.
With a catheter.
With weights, with hand
weights. With weights. I had 15-pound dumbbells. They said, don't work out for 6 weeks. I was like, I'm not going to do that. Our Airbnb was 4 stories. So I would walk the stairs up and down and up and down. And,
that doesn't surprise me.
No.
And work out on the roof. And she's like, well, I don't know if you should do that. And I'm like, I can feel if I'm going to get a hernia or something. Right. So I'll be careful.
So I do want to pause just a second.
Yeah, sure.
I want to ask Amy, as the love of your life, you guys knew each other in high school, got reconnected after school, and this has happened to your husband. If you wouldn't mind, there are a lot of people that are going to be watching this and listening to us. What was going through your mind? How you were feeling?
It's very difficult as a wife because you want to be supportive for him. And I never, ever wanted him to see fear in my eyes. But I think one thing that was shocking to me, just like you have mentioned, is that David is the healthiest person that I've ever encountered in my life, right?
Me too.
And then I think if this could happen to him, it could happen to anyone. And, you know, my daughter would jokingly say, well, all that celery didn't get you very far, Dad. And
She'd laugh at me. I'd say, you know, shouldn't eat that. She goes, you're the one who got cancer, Dad. So, okay, can't say much about that.
No, but we can say that maybe if he didn't take care of himself, maybe he wouldn't be around right now.
I agree with that.
And the recovery is going to be easier because of
being in good shape and taking care of yourself.
And the knowledge, I went with him to the oncologist and she said, I've never seen a protocol like this. I built this cabinet for David. It took me all day just to keep his supplements in because he had so many supplements, and even the oncologist had never seen a protocol like this.
My radiation oncologist, I had a radiation protocol I created.
Wow.
Yeah, and
to minimize side effects, and I had 0 side effects from radiation.
Right. And so, you know, I only had one breakdown, I think, this whole time, and it was when he got his numbers back when they started rising again, and he cut out all the eggs and cut out the chicken and was doing this protocol. And I was 100% convinced that he was totally cured. And the numbers went up again. And it just caught me so off guard. And then I started thinking about the fact that, wow, statistics show that I'm going to be around longer than he is anyway. And even though he's taking care of himself, he's the one that has cancer. And so I need to continue to be supportive for him, obviously, but I might need to show him some of my vulnerability because it's there, you know.
She's been like amazing. I couldn't do it without her.
No, I agree. And, you know, you knowing you as I have, I mean, you've experienced a lot of loss in your family, and you know, people have not lived full lives. And knowing that you had this, I mean, you could have said, "Oh, woe is me," you know, another Bailie down, or fight. And I mean, you fought this thing right from the start, and you know, I admire that. It takes a lot of courage. I mean, I can't imagine the thoughts that were going through your mind when you found out that you had cancer.
Yeah, it's a really a mental. It messes you up mentally.
It has to.
Nightmares like crazy. But then it was fine after surgery. I had altered some things, but not to the extent I probably should have. After I got a recurrence, it was a very low blip. I mean, that's when I talked to 11 different doctors in 9 countries.
Wow.
And I spoke to the world's experts, and they all had a little different philosophy. But off the record, they would tell me, you know more about this than me. And these are the world's experts at major universities around the world. And
they all say you're a physician, you know.
And I could make the call, and I got in, or I'd email them, and I would get an email back within 24 hours. And I realized it's a bit of a crapshoot in terms of treatment, and the data that comes out that provides standard of care in the United States. You know, it's 5 years antiquated by the time it gets out. So it's already kind of on to another step, but you can't do it if it's not standard of care. There's liability in the United States. So I encourage people to, if you have the resources, pick up and go to another country where get a consult at least. You can go to Turkey, you can go to Istanbul and get a full head-to-toe physical with every scan you could possibly think of and every blood test you could possibly think of for $800 at a state-of-the-art hospital that deals with expats and all this stuff. It's cheap other places. Now, are you going to stay for treatment? Maybe, maybe not. You have to really do some homework. You know, I talked to a radiologist in the Netherlands who created an MRI that picks up microscopic metastasis.
Wow.
And the reason I got his name was a guy in my prostate cancer group. I'm in a group, which is a great, can I plug a site? So there's a website called Health Unlocked. It's based out of the UK, but it covers just about every medical problem, psoriasis and heart disease, whatever.
Health
but
Unlock.
it's like a giant support group from around the world.
I love it.
And so I was part of 2 different prostate groups. And because I was a doctor, I got people private messaging me saying, thank God we have a doctor on this now instead of people just chiming in,
Right.
Who are really knowledgeable, but they're not medical background
Right.
At all. And I was doing alternative stuff too. And they were really enamored with that because I'm an MD and I'm doing traditional plus alternative. And I think there's a place for both of those. And a lot of traditional physicians poo-poo alternative, and a lot of the alternative naturopath, homeopathic docs refuse. They're probably not allowed and they don't understand it as much. They try to steer people away from traditional. And I think that's a mistake in both directions.
100%.
I think you have to learn about both. There's place for everything. And that being said, I've lost a lot of friends in my support group because ultimately they go down the standard of care route. And, there's a new drug, Pluvicto. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
It's advertised a lot. It uses something that attaches to cancer cells and has a radioactive, it's called a ligand, a little radioactive molecule on it. So the idea is that it travels to the cell and nukes that cell. Well, sounds great, but fails 50% of the time. It's super expensive, and it's the kind of the last resort for a lot of people. And then they're not sure why didn't it work, and then they're on chemo and this and this.
But I would imagine that every single patient is different. Everyone's just
Absolutely.
100%.
5, 4, 3, 4, 3, all those numbers. Everyone is very different.
Your genetics. I did a genetic test, clean from all the mutations. BRCA2 is a big mutation for prostate
You
cancer.
didn't have it.
I have 0 genetic things.
And that helps with your children.
Correct.
Knowing that you don't have that.
And if you ever get a biopsy, you should send it for genetic markers. No matter what cancer, even if it's a low grade, everything can be mapped genetically, and you want that data. USC didn't map mine, but I don't have the genetic predisposing things. But it also, one thing I've learned is cancer cells morph. They change, and they mutate. So that's why a treatment may work for a few years and then suddenly not work. Because at Mayo in Rochester, there's a guy who's really aggressive. He doesn't care if you have metastatic disease everywhere. I've seen his scans. He's cured people. He's super aggressive, but it's not standard of care.
Right.
But you get scans all the time. He'll shrink a tumor and then have his surgeon go in and pluck out a metastasis. And I've seen scans of his where it was spread everywhere. And this guy you're never cured. I'm a believer that once you have cancer, you are never cured. You just have silenced it, because everybody has cancer all the time.
100%.
It's your immune system that fights it, and your T cells. And there's some evidence to show that if you can manipulate your own T cells. The problem is you have big pharma and all these things, and
we
don't want to go down that path.
We don't want to go down that
But the
route.
bottom line is the drugs are the easiest and fastest way, because other stuff is technically off-label or experimental. And so, you get to a point. I will tell you, I thought this way personally. You get to a point. It's like, do you want to take a chance with something alternative? And it's a very difficult decision to make.
Well, I mean, look, you shared. I mean, it's very emotional, and you had nightmares, and I mean, coming to terms, and we're all about the same age. I mean, what a privilege it is to be here now.
Oh, yeah.
And what a great time it is to be alive right now. The things that we're seeing today are nothing short of phenomenal.
Absolutely. And I think that's another part of this, is the mental strength that you need when you have a diagnosis like this. But also, if you are in the cycle of perpetuation, I feel like it's, he's doing the research, he's on these blogs, he's talking to people, and he is surrounding himself with cancer and living in the cancer circle all the time. And so I felt like it's my job to break him out of that, because we woke up today.
Yeah.
And so let's enjoy what we have, because nobody knows if it's their last day on earth.
100%.
If you wouldn't have gotten that PSA test, you wouldn't have known that you had prostate cancer lurking. And there are no guarantees. And that's the one part of this journey I think that's been really difficult for me as a wife, is that he says, I need to be knowledgeable, I need to understand this, I need to take control, which I totally get. But I also feel like you need to step back sometimes because, the people that love you want you to enjoy the life.
I mean,
that you have.
she's perpetually positive.
Yeah.
And when you are embedded in cancer, it's very hard to counter those thoughts. I mean, she sings to a cricket in the house and lets it go. She'll trap it and put it outside. We had a little inchworm in our house that I saw, and she saves it and takes it outside.
I love
She
it.
sings to our koi and the dogs, and she's always kind of like that. And without that,
But you need that. You
right.
need that
And I can't
balance.
reproduce that, but without that being around me, that affects me tremendously. And
And
I'd be totally different without that.
Look, this isn't a therapy session. I just want to go on record by saying that.
Can be.
But she's exactly right. And I've known you for 30 years, and I know how obsessive you can be about consuming information. And that is one of your greatest qualities. I mean, it is your superpower, but it also can be your
It's a burden.
kryptonite. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also, but
Because-
I felt it was always my responsibility as a physician
Right.
to make sure I knew things, even about stuff that I don't practice, because patients ask me. And that's why I have a following that continues to
But
come
it's
to
not
see
just
me.
medicine. I mean, I've learned so much about the financial markets from you.
Correct.
True.
I mean, you have this trait, and please take it in the spirit I'm going to give it to you, is that when you are onto something, you have to go all in.
100%.
And that's just who you are. And that's the guy
Absolutely.
you married.
Yes.
But it is that balance.
Yes.
And it's really, really hard. And I mean, look, he knows in the back of his mind, as he's just shared with us, that once you have cancer, you always have cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And it got unleashed on him. And now he's kept it at bay. But you gotta track it. You gotta watch it. It's like me. I have psoriasis, right? I flipped the switch on my autoimmune system. I am now susceptible to a lot of different diseases because my autoimmune is compromised. You would say that, right?
100%.
You know that as a physician, and that's been shared with me. So I have to be really mindful of my health because I've triggered my autoimmune system. Same way with you with cancer. I get it. I get it. But I get more the fact that you took the opportunity to share that with me and our listeners here at Health Futures. And Amy, thank you for sharing your journey with us as well. Because as the care partner, it's not easy. And as you guys know, I'm in the home care business, and we care for the elderly. And the elderly, unfortunately, sometimes is us too, because I care for people in the early 60s and late 50s that are going down these paths, whether it be Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, traumatic brain injury, a car accident. I mean, bad things are happening to good people. And the stressors that are on care partners, Amy, like I know that we're on you, are hard. And it's hard to do it alone. The fortunate thing is that, one, you guys have been together forever, but you got a family. You got kids that I'm sure stepped up, and especially when you went through treatment. I think some of them came down to USC with you or
Yes.
Southern California.
Yeah, Braden worked from Southern California. And that was the impetus for him transferring. He told the Costco team, I can't live in Seattle anymore. I'm going to Phoenix. My dad's got a recurrence cancer and needs to have radiation, and I'm moving there.
Yeah.
And they were like, we need you here. Like he was very instrumental in some things up there. And, that's the kind of kid he is. He's like, I'm going to transfer to a plant down there, and he made it work. But his reputation was so solid at P&G, everybody knew he was the guy anyway. So it worked out.
Yeah.
But he was going to give up everything to make sure he's with his family when he's needed.
And here it is in 2025, you were doing that, right? Imagine if it was 2005. They would have never let him do that. I mean, the advancements in tech and innovation that we can do these things, the advancement in medicine that you can do the research. You could never had access to all this information back 20 years ago.
Not as easily. Yeah.
It was
I'd have to
really-
go on PubMed, and I knew how to do it as a doctor, but lay people have no way to
Right.
navigate this. But now they do.
Well, I love that you shared that. And Amy, again, as the care partner, I deal with a lot of care partners. Thank you for the work you do. And seriously, I know that you had your family to lean on, but I want care partners out there to know that there are support groups like David has just shared with us, especially for the cancer patient that's going through the journey. But there's also support groups for the partner that's going through that. And that's really important for a partner to keep their health, to be able to advocate for their loved one through that journey.
Well, and interesting,
Absolutely.
as an aside, Health Unlocked, a lot of the people I see on the site are the partners.
Yeah. It's
not the
important.
actual patient. So a lot of wives on there talking about their husbands, putting the pathology out there. What would you guys do? Here's my husband's situation. And they get support by interacting that way. Somebody has to be proactive, but
Well,
both people can't be as proactive together. You have to have somebody back off.
You're Healing Strong.
And my Healing Strong, which is a very spiritual, it uses mostly natural ways of solving cancer. A young kid had stage 3 colon cancer, had surgery, but then he refused everything else and solved it with just diet. And now it's morphed into a global entity. It's called healingstrong.org. And they have free stuff on their website, but dietary programs, juicing, all these things. I don't do all those, but a lot of people do. And we meet, it's called the Band of Brothers. It's my prostate cancer group, and they're guys from all over the United States. And we do a Zoom call every Wednesday.
I love it.
And people chime in. We have guest speakers, but people chime in their own experience. We've lost a couple of guys.
But your Healing Strong was run by the wife of one of the
Yeah,
patients.
so I got involved with that. She's in Fountain Hills, and she still runs it. Not the prostate only. These are people with all kinds of cancers.
Yeah.
That Healing Strong, we meet every Monday or 2 Mondays a month on Zoom, but they have cancers of all kinds, and people, again, from all over the country. There's a chapter of Healing Strong in every city.
I love it.
But she lost her husband to prostate cancer, and I knew him really well. And, people have investigated Mexican clinics and this and this. So you get a lot of information and a lot of support, no matter what cancer you have. So Healing Strong is a really good resource as well. Health Unlocked is more technical. Like, what are the doctors doing?
Right.
Healing Strong is more,
Healing Strong,
what supplements?
Healingstrong.com.
.org.
And the other one is
healthunlocked.com.
.com.
And the Blue Zones, they promote community, and that's what you're saying. So I appreciate you having us on here, and I think you're
This is
absolutely
community, right?
Yeah,
People are going to listen. I feel like we're talking to an audience, and
100%.
that makes a difference when you can spill it to multiple people.
I just wrapping up your own health journey, I think you are more than paying it forward, and I really appreciate that. And I know everyone on those networks are appreciative of that, because not only did you personally go through the journey, but you're an MD and you did the research. And even though it may be a different type of cancer, you can give people hope, you can give people facts, you can tell them where resources are. So,
And they teach me a lot too. A lot of what I do in my protocol, I learned from some of the Healing Strong members, and it is important. And what you do is extremely important.
Well,
You're in the home health business, but the fact that you went out of your way to create initially the radio show and now the podcast to allow information to get spread or to anyone who wants it.
And I will tell you, I do this because I think the biggest problem solved of not only our generation, but humanity is how do we care for all these old people?
Absolutely.
Oh, big problem.
Because the 65-year-old population is doubling in the next 2 decades, and the 85-year-old population is going to nearly quadruple. And we don't have enough people behind us to care.
And they don't live at home with the younger generation the way it used to be.
1/3 of our population, 65 and older, is solo aging. So it's really hard. So that's what motivates me and gets me going. I want to, move off of your personal journey, and I so appreciate you guys sharing that with us. And I know our listeners will definitely appreciate it too. And I want to come back to talking about orthopedics, and then I want to close. So aging and longevity have a direct correlation to bone health and orthopedics. I certainly would like you to share with us, what are some of the things you can recommend? I mean, you and I talked about before, I showed you my thumb. I got this little osteoarthritis going, and, all of us have the privilege of getting older, because it indeed is. We know that. What can you recommend to keep our bones healthy, keep our strength? I mean, you follow an incredible regimen, and I aspire to be able to do what you do. I really do. And you've made it a habit since you were 15 years old. So this is like a 45-year-old habit that you've got. And is my math right? Yeah, about 45.
Wow.
45 years. So what do you recommend to the people that are listening here today to really keep their bone health and be able to age and keep their longevity as long as possible?
Well, first of all, I would say the older generation needs to take responsibility to educate the younger. For instance, in women, you lose bone mass starting at about age 20, 21, and it goes downhill from there. So your bone mass in your early 20s dictates whether you're going to get osteoporosis later. Wow. Weight-bearing exercise, we know, improves bone health, but you're still losing bone as you age. So if you can build up a reservoir of hard, good bone in your 20s, you're going to be better off later. So you can slow that process, but you can't stop it. So you got to start with a big bank account, so to speak, of bone, knowing that you're going to spend it as you go. How do you replenish it? You can slow it down. Cod liver, best source of vitamin D. I get that from Iceland, and I eat it frequently. The best source of vitamin D, and that's really critical. Heavy exercise, heavy lifting. Lift till you can't. You should only be able to do 8 to 10 reps, 3 sets, and you should burn out your muscles. And older people tend to lift light and frequent. That doesn't do anything. You need to lift heavy. And
cause inflammation because that promotes healing, right?
Yeah, and you need adequate protein intake, which is another problem that the older population doesn't need enough. They don't need it frequent enough, and they don't need enough protein. You need all that. That's really critical. Really learning, and you can overwhelm yourself with data. And I don't wear wearables and any of that. I think that's overwhelming. I don't like the electrical stuff on me.
Right.
So I don't wear iWatches, Apple Watches, or any electrical things like that, because I think it's
you put earbuds in your ears?
No. So I wear on the ear that don't go in the ear.
Got it.
And preferably I have monitors, like musicians have, that are wired. So when I'm on a plane or whatever, I plug into my phone and it's monitored, because electrical EMF stuff is really toxic. You can't get around it. It's everywhere. It does cause physical harm to people. There's no question. And you can't avoid it all. So you just try to learn and don't destroy your life over it. Just mitigate what you can.
Right.
I bought an EMF reader. We have a cell tower outside of our house on the corner, and my daughter's room is closest, and I did it. And I called the HOA and said, this antenna is putting out too much. And they, no, we had it tested. Well, within a couple of weeks, they came back and toned it down. So be proactive when you can. Do what you can to mitigate things. But dietary things are critical. Heavy lifting, weight-bearing exercise, walk your 10,000 steps. Studies have shown that actually is very advantageous, not just some hokey thing. Lift heavy a couple days a week. Cardio is great, but it breaks down muscle, breaks down bone. Your calcium depletes when you do too much cardio. So minimize your cardio. Walking is great, but jogging and running, they're finding is detrimental for a lot of people. So because of the way it breaks you down. And learn and do as much as you feel comfortable. I think an impedance scale is really important for everybody to have. Not an expensive one, but one that measures your body fat. Even if it's not accurate, same scale every day or a couple times a week is important to follow the trends and see if you're gaining muscle or gaining fat based on what you eat. And you figure out real quickly, I ate sourdough bread. I know I'm going to be 2.5 pounds heavier tomorrow, but it's going to be all water because glycogen ends up in my muscles. So you know the response. You don't go by scale weight. You go by body composition. I would get a formal DEXA body composition scan once a year to know what your bone mass is, what your fat mass is, your visceral fat. And those are all easy to change with diet and exercise.
So what do most 50-year-olds, what mistake did they typically make when it comes to exercise?
Well, first of all, I don't think they spend enough time doing heavy resistance training. So that's really the critical thing. That's been really started to get pushed to the forefront now, but heavy resistance training is the key as you get older. You have to do it.
Heavy resistance training. All right. So
heavy is relative, right?
Yeah. So we're gonna go into a round here. We're gonna do some rapid fire questions. Okay. I didn't prepare you, but this is really good for our listeners to really get to know a little bit about Dr. David Bailie. And And Amy, you're welcome to chime in on some of these because I may ask you these questions too. All right, you ready? Pickleball or tennis?
Tennis.
Tennis.
Love it. Beach or mountains?
Yeah, like both.
Beach for him, mountains for me.
Mountains are good for air quality.
You know, we talked about CrossFit. Friend or foe?
Done right, friend. For most people, foe. But good for me.
Ice or heat?
Ice, always.
But infrared sauna.
Infrared sauna every day.
Oh, I like that.
I do that every day.
MRI too soon or too late?
Oh, you can never be too soon for MRI.
What is the most abused joint?
The knee, by far.
What is one exercise everyone does wrong?
Pull-ups.
Really?
Yeah, and it's probably the most important exercise you should do.
Because of your shoulders.
Because
it works.
They do it. It's a composite strength exercise. Push-ups and pull-ups are the two most important things you should do, and wall squats for your legs.
Yeah, I can do.
I don't belong to a gym, by the way.
I can do 2 of the 3.
Yeah, I don't belong to a gym, by the way.
I believe
you don't need it.
Yeah. Best low impact workout.
Walking.
What advice would you give patient? What is the worst advice patients get from Google?
And now Chat GPT.
Yeah.
I don't think they get any terrible advice. They just don't know how to synthesize it and incorporate it. So when you take good information and you use it wrong, that's bad advice.
Age that you start seeing real joint issues.
I would say mid-50s for sure. 60, 100%.
Which surgeries you wish that people weren't so afraid of?
Well, joint replacement. It's a quality of life thing. But it's not mandatory, of course. And then rotator cuff surgery. People tend to put off rotator cuff surgery when it's symptomatic, and that will lead to often catastrophic things later or non-repairable. I do that every week, unfortunately.
If you weren't an orthopedic surgeon, what would you be doing?
Architect.
Is there a question I haven't asked that you would like me to ask, or is there a lasting thought you would like to leave us?
My lasting thought would, you need to marry somebody like Amy if you're a guy, because it totally changes your life.
Yeah, you need that partner. You guys have been through a lot.
Yeah.
You definitely have.
Well, yin and yang.
Yeah, it's a balancing act.
We're polar opposites sometimes.
So, real quick on ASICs. How do we get a hold of ASICs? We got knee issues. We got shoulder issues. Dr. David Bailie is your guy. How do we find you?
ASICS.com, AZISKS.com. And there's a link for appointments.
And there are a lot
and they can email me directly. People email me randomly. I've had patients from as far away as Europe who find me, and they come here, stay 2 weeks, have surgery, and go back. And I answer my emails personally every day.
And there's a lot of information on the website also.
And I know he didn't talk about this, but he's patented a few things, and especially around the area that he's not doing presently, but shoulder replacement stuff, which is really, really cool. And I think that's probably up on your website. And you can probably find, because I know that you've been teaching, and when you were in your prime, I say prime, we're still in our prime, but you used to do some traveling overseas to teach people and show them techniques that you had developed. And I'm just, in all of you, in many ways, professionally and personally, I'm happy to have you as my friend. And while we don't get a chance to talk as frequently as I like, we got a lot of history here. This is your 9th episode, so we'll have to bring you back, and we can talk about a whole bunch of things that we didn't really get a chance to talk about today. But Dr. David Bailie, my dear friend, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for sharing with us your own personal journey, and thank you for bringing Amy. I mean, this is the cherry on the top, and Amy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. Truly.
Make it a great day. Another great episode with Health Futures. Please like us, recommend us, and please give us a review. We'll be back next week.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com.